What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and today we're going to be going over music in our Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series. Now this is an episode that can be very fun. I always love playing around with music and sound effects because it adds a lot of life to your game. So you can hear that there's no music going on right now, but when I enter my main menu, you will be able to hear some music start to play. You can use whatever song or sounds that you want to test this. We will also go ahead and add some music to the stages live in this episode. When we enter the game, there is no music playing, and it's not a very enjoyable experience if you're playing for an extended period of time with no music and just sitting here playing by yourself like I am now. We most likely don't want to play the same music as the main menu plays, so we're going to set up a system, an actual music playing system, so we can determine where we are, what stage we're on, and what music we should play with it. I do want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube membership and Patreon members and supporters. Thank you guys for everything. I really appreciate it. This is episode 49 of the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series. So if you're interested in getting caught up in the series and checking out everything we've done to this point, feel free to click the icon in the top right corner right here. You will go to the entire playlist of the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series, so you can go ahead and check that out. Alternatively, if you only care about the music, then I would recommend you check out this episode right here on the main menu. That is where we set up some of the menu flow that we're going to need today to figure out what stage we're going to and what music to play. We're going to start in the code today, and specifically we want to go to our base game instance.h. Remember that the base game instance is our game instance, and basically the game instance is not part of a single level. It can be triggered from any point, so as you're switching levels you can still pull data from it. This is really useful because this is how we set the character class. We may set it on the character select menu, but the game instance is the one that tracks the value, and then we pull from that data to spawn the correct characters in the stage. We're going to be doing the same sort of logic for the music, so I'd recommend setting up an enum that can track the type of music you want to play. So I've made a UEnum that is blueprint type, so we can access it in the blueprint. And I made it an enum class, eMusic type, which is an unsigned integer 8-bit. Essentially, you can set it up the same as your other enums that we have in this series so far. And for our values, I have none with the display name of none. The display name is just what will show up when you're editing it in a blueprint or when you're selecting that option. So none is pretty self-explanatory. It just means that we don't want to play any music or there hasn't been any music set. Main menu, also self-explanatory. It's just the music that we're going to play when we're on the main menu. Then I also have training stage 1 and 2. For now I have 2 different stages we can play on, and so I've put them both here. If we want to assign the music directly to a specific stage, then this is what you'll want to do. Notice you can still randomize your music and play something else that's not related to the stage. So if you want, don't relate it to the stage directly. You could put the actual name of the song. So if you have a song that's like intro, you could say E_intro with the display name of intro. If you had a song that was like Final Destination, you could put E_Final Destination with the display name of Final Destination. I'm just calling these based off the stage name because right now I'm just using generic music that was free, and for me none of them are directly tied to the stages. Once you've made this enum, we need a value to track it in the game instance. So if we scroll down to our actual class where we have all of our variables, we can add an eMusic type variable that I just call music type. I make sure that it is uProperty, edit anywhere, blueprint read write, so we can access it in the blueprint, and I gave it a category of music so it's easy to find. This is useful for knowing what type of song we should play. We will also want a UAudio component. It's not technically required, as you can just play music whenever you want using something like PlaySound 2D, but for the music in particular, we're going to want to be able to play it and stop it depending on what we're doing. So if we exit or change levels, we may want to stop the music, and if we just play it and forget about it, we won't have any reference to it. Additionally, you probably don't want 2 songs playing over top of each other. A UAudio component is only capable of playing one song at a time. On top of the benefits of being able to play and stop the song when we want to, we can also make sure that we only have one song playing at a time. This is a U audio component pointer, and I've called it music ref. Basically, this is going to keep track of our sound file for our music at all times, so we know exactly where we're at, what we can do with that song, and what we want to do once that one is finished. Now, the base game instance does have a CPP. We have not filled out a constructor for it to this point, so it's just empty. Not required that you do, but we should make a constructor at one point or another, so I'd recommend doing it now. To do it is very simple. I'm going to go to my class. I'm going to go under generated body, and I am going to write U base game instance parentheses semicolon. That sets up the constructor. Go into your CPP file, and we can actually make the constructor here. U base game instance colon U base game instance parentheses, and then there we go. Here's our constructor. So we can set our default values in here. We might as well go through and set it for everything that we need to. We don't have to set it for the players array, as it will be empty by default. The match type should be set to the default value. So I'm going to say set the values for variables. If I could type, that would be good. Set the default values for variables. And we'll go down the list. So we'll set match type equals eMatch type. And you can select standard or whatever your default value is. Music type, that's our new one, is going to be set to eMusic type, none. Music ref is going to be set to null pointer by default because it is a pointer. Num players can be defaulted to whatever you want. And is device used for multiple players can also be defaulted to whatever you want. For me, num players has been 3 since the start of the series as a default because it's 0, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to say num players equals 3, and I'm going to say is device used for multiple players is true because right now I'm doing everything on the keyboard. So now I've set all my default values for my base game instance. Although it's not actually required for this episode, I do recommend doing it as it is better to have a constructor than not to have one. It gives us more freedom over what we can do and what our values default to. Alright, my editor is back open, so now we are going to go to all the places that we want our music to play. The first one I can think of is the main menu. We technically have the press any key screen as well, which is this initial screen, but I don't have music playing there. I want the music to play when I go to the main menu. If you do want music playing when you press any key screen, you can basically just do exactly what I'm going to do on my main menu in there instead. So here is my main menu widget. And if I go to the graph, everything in this widget is the same except for these first 4 nodes. To play music, essentially what we need to do is determine the type of music we want to play and then pass that along to our audio component. Since we are on the main menu and the main menu event is being constructed, we can assume that we want to play the main menu music, so we don't actually have to grab the value, we have to set the value and then play the music based off of that. We just get the game instance. We cast it to our base game instance, which is the code game instance that we have where we set the music type variable initially, where we created that. Then we can call set music type on it, and we can manually pick the type that we want to set. And we're going to want our main menu since we're on the main menu widget. After this, we're going to do something called play music. And this is a function that I made in a blueprint function library. So we'll need to create that before we can do this part. We're going to make that blueprint function library, and I made a new folder called libraries, but this is by no means required. A blueprint function library is essentially a function that you can call from pretty much anywhere in Blueprint. It's really helpful for functions that are able to be used from many places. To create one, you can go to Add in Unreal and go to Blueprints and click Blueprint Function Library. Here's the comment for it. There are containers of functions to be used in other blueprints. They cannot contain variables, inherit from other blueprints, or be placed in levels. Changes to functions in blueprint function library will take effect without recompiling the client blueprints. I've already created one before this episode, and I've called it Blueprint Function Library Sound Behavior. So I'm going to delete the new one that I just made, and I'm going to go into this old one that I already have. When you come in here, you won't have any functions, but you can simply click plus add right here to make a new function. We're going to need two functions, a play music and a stop music. The functions are pretty self-explanatory. Play music is when we're going to start playing music, and stop music is when we want to stop music. Can't get simpler than that. Now to play the music, what we need to do is grab our music type and also our music ref, create a sound, track it using the ref, and then play it. It's pretty simple in theory, and here's how this is going to go down. In our play music, we're going to get our game instance. The game instance requires a world context object. In fact, a lot of things do when you're in these blueprint function libraries. This is because the blueprint function library needs to know where to actually perform this action. You can do something simple though and just get the world context. It is something that exists that you can just pass directly into the get game instance world context object, and it will get the current world context and use that, which is what we want because we want to play this music in the current world. Then from here, we can cast it to our base game instance again, and this is important because this is where we can grab our music type and music ref. Once that's done, we can grab our music type like we did earlier. We want to get music type, and we want to drag off of our music type and perform a switch on that. Switch on eMusic type. This will bring up a switch statement with all the potential paths. So we have none, main menu, training stage, and training stage 2. Right off the bat, I'm going to set up the none. I actually missed the world context on it. But even without filling out stop music, you can just go ahead and call stop music. And so if we ever try and play music, but the music is set to none, we're just going to trigger a stop. You don't have to trigger stop music from this method. You could just call stop music from anywhere. But just as a safeguard, if we ever have none as our music and we try and play music that doesn't exist, just stop whatever we're playing. Additionally, make sure you do pass in your world context. I did forget to do that, but no worries. So something like that would do the trick. Now, if it is one of the other cases, such as main menu or our training stages, we're going to want to create the proper sound, set our music ref to it, and then play it. As I said earlier in the episode, we have to set up the other training stages, which I'll do with you live. But main menu I have already set up. So assuming that we are on the main menu music type, we want to do something called create sound 2D, which is different from play sound 2D. Create sound 2D will allow us to create a reference to the sound. Then we can set it to our music ref. That way we can keep track of it and play it. This way it doesn't get forgotten about if we just play it. And like I said earlier, we will be able to then stop the music when we want to, or make changes to it. If we want to increase the volume, we can also do that because we will still have our music reference. So I'm going to go and pick any sound. Like I said, I have some free ones, so I think I use starter music cue. But if you have music in here, feel free to do that. If you don't, no worries. Just use whatever you've got, or just set this up and add sounds or music later for it. That's also fine. Now once we create this, make sure you pass the world context yet again into this create sound 2D, because it is needed there. And the create sound 2D has a return value that is an audio component object reference. Well, our music reference off of our base game instance is a UAudio component pointer. So if we grab off and type set music ref, we can plug in the return value from create sound 2D directly into this, and now our music ref will keep track of the sound that was created here. After that is done successfully, I then play the song. So I can drag directly off of the music ref and type play. And I just leave the start time at 0 because I want to play it from the beginning. I don't need to start it in the middle for any reason. The other paths on the switch statement here are essentially the exact same. I just haven't set them up. So I'd recommend just copying them like this. and make sure you pass your world context object in no matter what. Plug it in here. And then additionally, the music ref also needs to be set correctly. So you can either use reroute nodes like I am, or grab the music ref separately every time. It doesn't really matter how you do it. I'm just going to play something I haven't listened to before, so let's play starter background cue. And by the way, you can click the little magnifying glass at any point to go to this file, and so I can play it right now. It's pretty obvious this is just actual background noise and not really music, but that works well enough for our demonstration. Now let's do it one more time. Let's copy all this again and paste it down below. Make sure we grab our world context and our music ref. And then I'll pick something else one final time. We can pick the starter birds. So we have starter music, starter background, and starter birds. And now this is what our play music looks like. We'll be able to play music immediately whenever this function is called. Let's do our stop music, and then we'll finish setting it up in the main menu, as well as set it up for the 2 other stages. Stop music is way easier than play music because we already have our music reference, and all we're going to do is call stop on it. So essentially the exact same way we did it before, we are going to get our game instance, pass it the world context object, cast that to the base game instance type. Then we're going to grab our music reference from that, so get music ref. And we're going to drag off the music ref and just call stop. So basically, whatever our music reference has, stop that music. Don't play it anymore. It's that simple. Make sure you don't forget to plug in training stage 2 like I almost did. We wouldn't have heard anything if I left that unplugged, so there you go. Now you can go back to stop music. One other thing we should do in here is actually check to make sure that this is valid before trying to stop it. In the play music, we were setting the music reference. So we were simply playing the music after setting it. We were playing it right off that reference. So we know if we go to do this, it's going to be valid. However, when we're stopping music, it's possible that the music may have already stopped, depending on where we're using it. And so it's good to make sure that we do check for validity to the main menu. And as easily as this, you can just right-click and type play music or stop music. Right now, we just need play music, but if you look for stop music, it also comes up. So look for play music, select that, and plug it in right here after setting the music type. Then bring the end of play music into the rest of your logic that has already existed for the main menu. And there you go, it's that simple. We will now have music playing on the main menu. To get the music working for our stages as well, what we will want to do is go to our maps. So I have my main menu, which is its own level, and I don't have a persistent level. We don't have level streaming like the fighting game as of now, but we will. For now, that means we can just set these up directly in the level blueprints by clicking on each level and going into them. So right now we're on the main menu. You could have also set up the music for the main menu when we enter this level. That is up to you. That is if you want to play it right from the start. But again, I want to play it directly from the main menu widget, and so I did not want to trigger it early. The default map that comes with the engine is in Side Scroller CPP Maps, and we want to go to Side Scroller Example Map. This is the new function library that I was making as a demonstration, so I don't want to save that. Don't save. Once we have this open, we can click on the little graph here to open up the level blueprint. If you're in UE4 and not UE5 like I am now, you can still do this. You'll want to look for the Blueprints tab. It'll actually say Blueprints or Blueprint here. And you select that and select Open Level Blueprint. In here, we were setting up our camera, but other than that, we haven't really done anything. You can still set up the camera first if you want. That really doesn't matter. Just as long as in this begin play logic, we have our music logic as well. So what we're going to want to do in here is get our game instance. and cast it to our base game instance. Then we can drag off this and set the music type. And we'll want to put training stage for this because that's the level that corresponds to this level blueprint. Then we can simply call play music. And literally as simply as that. I mean, technically we can just come in here without going through our main menu. And you will have that background music. Sounds kind of like Steam and not great, but there you go. You can tell there's sound coming. It doesn't really matter what the music is. I'll have to get some actual music for that. But regardless, you see that it is working. Now the last thing we want to do, you can probably guess, but we are going to go into our other map, which is my training room. That's what I called the other map. I technically called it the training room, but this is my training stage 2. This is the one that we actually created. And we're going to go into our level blueprint again. And it couldn't be much easier than this. We'll get our game instance. We will cast it to the base game instance. Hook it up. Set music type. And set it to training stage 2 now. And then we're going to drag off and play music. And we'll test it one final time. If you just play right from the stage, you'll hear this. There you go. And so it's birds. It's not exactly music, but we have background noise that we can use on this stage. And of course, whenever you change that function in the blueprint function library, you will see that the different music will play. We come from the main menu now. We go back to that level and play from here. Our music will function as expected, so we can come into the main menu, we hear our music. It will continue on to the stage select and the character select because we have not stopped the music. So we can do STB, and we'll play on this stage. You'll see that the music does actually stop from the main menu to play the other one. They're not playing over top of each other, so that's not really an issue because the music ref can only play one song at a time. Now, you may want to call stop music just as an additional check here to make sure that the music isn't playing. So if you do, I just recommend calling stop music right like this before you go into the play music logic. It's going to work regardless because of the nature of that audio component. But I do recommend doing something like this where we're actually manually calling stop music because this allows us to get familiar with the audio component. And additionally, we can do things like fade out if we do this method. Right now, we're just stopping it right away. But if we want to fade it out or fade into the new music, then we don't want to rely on that one audio component doing everything on its own. We actually do want to be able to stop the music on our own volition. So there you go, guys. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it helped you, and if it did, please subscribe. That's more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do, and I just really appreciate it. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube membership and Patreon members and supporters. Thank you guys for everything. Really grateful for the support, and really happy to see what you guys make in the future. If you had any issues with this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. I'd be happy to help you out, get you sorted so you can keep working on your game. Anyway, guys, like I said, that's all I got, so thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.